we got the tabs open for different types of gameplay, and it's not all we're going to go over today. We're going to touch on industrial types of gameplay. It's starting to come up more. For like 6-7 years, we've been doing basically all combat with a little bit of like courier missions here and there. And for the most part, that's been boring for the more industrial players. So this last year or two has been exciting with mining, with salvage, a little bit of refueling. Cargo hauling is getting some focus. So today I thought we would just jump through some of the different recent updates we've gotten on industrial gameplay for those who like that kind of stuff. Engineering, refining, salvage, cargo hauling, little bit of refueling. What am I missing? Probably a couple others. Cargo hauling, I already said that. So we're just going to kind of do a little Q&A. Honestly, I have videos up here already to answer questions and just dive through what they've talked about, but I also want to open it up to chat so you guys can ask whatever you want over the next few hours, and we'll condense it down into a nice little update overall on what's going on in industrial Star Citizen, because things are getting hot. So first we're going to start with salvage today, and this is going to be I'm going to jump around a little bit because you don't need to talk about all of this. Really, there's a big chunk in here of vehicle components we don't need to go over. But this is going to tell us everything we need to know or have known about what's planned for salvage gameplay. Now, like I said, we're going to go over different types of gameplay here. I'm probably won't chapter these on YouTube, but if you jump around, you'll be able to find them. We've got refining, cargo as well. Engineering is something that I want to get into. But here is something I wanted to start with because a lot of people are concerned about salvage and it not being that fun, and I think we should go back and touch on the details once again. So here's Todd Pappy. I think he presented base building at CitizenCon, for those who don't remember him. And this is what he has to say on salvage gameplay.
Overall, how do we see
that's very
salvage
quiet.
working in the persistent universe?
We really break it down into 4 different types. So there's hull scraping, which would be actually removing hull, or basically the paint off of the hull.
Like scraping hull?
Then there's components, basically salvaging, taking out the components that are placed actually within the objects, so coolers, power plants, computers, so on and so forth. Then there's the maw, which would be actually crunching up the ships and disposing of them that way. And then there's actually siphoning of different oxygen or fuel, data, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. We've talked about some of those aspects before. The hull scraping is like the inverse of repair the last time we talked about it.
Yeah, for those who missed that there, he just named, I think he just named the 4 different types of salvage. We got 3 of those in the last year. Granted, none of them are really complete. Hull scraping is kind of there, but component retrieval is not there. And as we've seen with the 322 EPTU, hull munching is also not really there. So they have work to do, but they have introduced these components much faster than they were doing before.
Like a repair beam would be shot at the ship and like put it back together, and then a hull scraping would be the reverse of that.
Yeah, think of it almost like you're applying Bondo, you're taking away Bondo, for like car repairs and stuff like that. So
okay, and then a component retrieval, it's like FPS. You fly over, you go inside the wreck, you pull the components. Maw, I'm guessing, is the reclaimer, is something like the reclaimer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Siphoning was the one that I'm not familiar with. Talk to me a little bit more about siphoning. Siphoning what?
Well, I mean, for example, we have tanks, so like quantum fuel tanks, hydrogen fuel tanks. Obviously, in the future, we'll have data associated with computers, and so if you scan something, then think of it like a hard drive. You're taking information off of a hard drive. So, or you're siphoning out oxygen, or you're siphoning out, basically the fuel. So then, you find these wrecks, and to me, oxygen is going to be, oxygen and water are going to be one of the two, kind of most useful things in space. So
it's Mega Man all over again.
Right. So then you want to take those, and so then in the future you're not having to pay for these things, or
Okay.
If you can get them for free, then why not?
Yeah.
Now,
That's my kind of energy. If I can get this for free, why would I buy it? Pirate living, Todd.
I understand that all of these different aspects of salvaging, they all have a number of prerequisites, things that are being worked on right now that will make salvaging possible. Talk to us about some of the prerequisites that are being worked on right now.
Well, so for hull scraping, we've got the damage tech that Ali had done a long time ago, and there's some persistence that would need to be done with that, in order to make sure that we're spawning the ships the way that we need to spawn them, and because right now we don't save out all of that information. So there was
Partially, this is why we didn't get salvage until persistence. It's part of why salvage took so long, but I also think they benefited a lot from just taking longer with salvage, so they didn't have to rush something faster. Not saying that hull scraping was like incredible when we got it, but I don't think it would have been as feature rich if they had released it, a year or two earlier. Maybe when they had the tech working better, but not the persistence to support it.
There would need to be some thought process and some work done on that. For the hull scraping, obviously we need to create the weapons or items that you can use to actually scrape. And then for component retrieval, it's actually getting the items in, getting them placed within ships, getting power running, getting pipes working the way that we need it to work, so that so you can take it out of ships, but at the same time, when you're actually in the ship, you have the multi-crew gameplay of actually removing those items or switching.
And there's the component retrieval we got in 319. It's not feature rich. I'm saying that it would have been less so, comparative. In 319, we got removable components. So that's what he's talking about here. And that's kind of building towards the engineering gameplay, which is the whole pipe system, power, and all that kind of stuff.
Switching them out on the fly if you're flying around or even if you're in battle. The maw, that one to me is going to be based off of the way that we break up our ships anyways, and kind of then figuring out, do we need to have smaller detonators on those to blow up those things and then create different shards, or there just needs to be some real thought gone into the maw and how we're going to crunch things up and get that. And then siphoning, it's basically at that point in time.
See, they didn't know. Like, they designed this ship with this claw, and they didn't know how it was going to work. And this is why, this is one of the problems that they've just painted themselves into a corner with several of the ships now. What's another one that they've had this with? I mean, the raft almost feels like it might suffer from this too, because instead of tractor beams, it has a crane. It's not going to be as easy to use. But yeah, there are like a few ships that were designed before the gameplay, and they're going to have some form of a rework, and they're going to have challenges making that gameplay work. But that's why I think we haven't gotten that physical deconstruction yet, because it's not going to be easy.
Making sure the room system's working the way that we need it to work, so that we can actually pull things out. Making sure that we can actually put things in too, so like getting our life support working the way that we need it to work. For the fuel and those tanks, it's basically just making sure that we have a entry point so that we can actually pull things out.
This might tell us a little bit of info about what they expect for the other things, but I think the big kicker here is the one part of salvage we still don't have, which is the siphoning. He mentioned that you'd be able to pull out water, power, fuel, oxygen, and data. So like being able to hack into a ship and maybe take some of its data or something, being able to force a ship disabled to give up some of its fuel, like that's another part of salvage. Or like you find a derelict ship and you need oxygen or fuel or water or something, you could take that out of the ship easily too. So that's like a reverse refuel, and refueling for some reason hasn't had a lot of work lately, but they need to upgrade it for pyro. So I'm guessing that's something we might see next year. When we got engineering, we also got a basic form of repair. Maybe when we get better refueling, we'll get a basic form of siphoning. So I'm hoping that is something that comes next year, and we can say technically we have a basic version of each form of salvage that can work together with the other professions. But let's hear what Pappy says we still need for that kind of stuff.
Without putting a date on it or a time on it, I want to see maybe lay out the salvage roadmap for us. What's how does this how do we see this going forward?
So right now, we're working on power, and we're basically getting that working the way that it's supposed to be working, so it's scalable. And then from there, we're working on getting all the items placed in the ships, and obviously with our catalog of ships, that takes a while. Um, so those things are being worked on in tandem right now, and then from there we'll figure out, okay, is with hull scraping, when do we start on that, and kind of work through a lot of those things. So with that, those have always been kind of in Chris's mind, my mind, Tony's minds. Those are really the first, ideas of what salvage is. So then it'll just be, okay, do we want to release the components, aspect first, or do we want to, release hull scraping, with the components, and say that is salvage as a whole. But no matter what, I think it'll just be us figuring out, okay, hey, here, this is our base salvage, and then we'll continue to iterate on it, much like we did with mining, where we put out, an idea of, hey, this is salvage, or this is mining, and then we introduce FPS mining, and from there, we've done other adjustments to like volatile mining, so on and so forth. So it'll be kind of following the same cadence that. Or salvage will be following the same cadence that we've done in mining.
Cool. So this sounds like a lot of dependencies, but things are in motion right now then.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, we are.
Didn't give us too much, basically. We'll work on it over time. So that's generally how it goes, and that seems to be what it is that they're doing. But I don't expect salvage to stop development for a while. There's not much else in terms of detail besides that. You have to go pretty far back to find other salvage stuff. But he does, at one point, a little bit earlier than this, they do talk about still salvage charges, which I think is where we're going to get some of the stuff like the mining gadgets will be similar. Salvage charges to break up ships, which I think will probably also use Maelstrom. But it's a deep system. It's going to take a while to build. All right, refining gameplay. This is an interesting one because they never talk about it. This is supposed to, in my mind, we should have had this by now. I was almost certain we'd see something with refining this year, at least in a sprint report. But they have not talked about it. I'm guessing it was making some progress at the beginning of this year. Things were going well. PES, messed stuff up. That messed other stuff up. That eventually impacted refinery ships, which, as you can see here, had scheduled work completed in November, probably updated next month. But this includes the Expanse, the Starfarer, the Arastra, the Odyssey, the Galaxy. There might be a couple others that I'm missing. We have quite a few refineries on ships now, so this is becoming a much bigger feature, especially because with mining taking some steps up, and with Pyro not having as many space stations to refine in, we're going to need space ships to do it with. So here we're going to talk a little bit about how refining works, and what the plans are, how it's going to be different from what we do right now with space stations.
Based refining and station-based refining, we're talking about a far more active and involved process for the player on ships.
There's no AFK refining, in any way.
You have to pay attention to all the tidbits of the refining process, like the temperature. It's like similar to mining, but a little bit more complex, because there on the refining ship you have the reactor that could have a various amount of methods. So as already mentioned, there could be a furnace, there could be electrolyte system that could grow or help grow or separate crystals. Like you could add in some solvents like acids that would help you, and the entire reactor is built around that. So you could basically, in the end, our goal is to have you, as the owner of the refining ship, tailor your the refining process to your demands. So, for example, imagine a situation where you or your friend is focusing on mining just minerals. So you wouldn't have a furnace there, right? You would have prepare your reactor in a way that the reactor is more efficient with minerals than with metals.
So these would be probably just refining components, like trading out I think they said the Starfarer's tanks will actually be able to be traded out for mineral storage tanks, maybe, or if they're different for hydrogen fuel and quantum fuel. So if you could trade those out, he's basically saying you'd be able to do the same for a refinery type. So we'd be able to mine gases, we'd be able to mine minerals, and you would customize your ship based on what you want to do. Maybe the system that you're in, maybe what the economics are saying that day, maybe what your org is doing. But it adds some variability again to how your ship works.
So this is basically our goal, that you customize it to your demands.
And
Now-
one more thing to add to that, it's you're customized to what you want to refine, but you can also customize. The idea is to allow the player to customize the Starfarer, because the Starfarer was a ship that's supposed to do refueling, and it was also supposed to do refining. So it's up to the players how many tanks for storing stuff, for storing solids, for storing liquids and gas, for storing fuel, or how many reactors does he equip on that ship. So it's up to him how much he wants to store, and maybe the Starfarer is the one that sells because you don't have a hauling ship, and he just comes back, keeps refining, because then he needs a lot more transporting capacity. So yeah, we're trying to offer all these options, and then it's up to the player to play however he sees fit and whatever the situation needs.
Okay. Now we don't generally do when questions on the show. We leave the when questions to the Star Citizen public roadmap. That's all the best and the most accurate when information that we have is on that roadmap, folks. That said, the stuff that we're talking about here, the refining, is this theory crafting of something we're going to work on someday in the future, or is this stuff that we're actively developing right now?
It's in design. Design is done and approved. It's waiting an actual programmer to finish some of his current work and to jump on this.
Awesome.
Hey, talking about Torsten, does that mean that he had to get his stuff done with, what has he been working with? Engineering, right? So Dan Truffin and Torsten both are pretty heavily involved in engineering, so I'm guessing that might be part of the slowdown with us getting refining, is that, just getting things signed off and making sure it fits into the game.
Off approved design, just wait.
This video is, I think, 2 years old.
Going. Pretty much.
Yeah,
okay.
2021.
And it's soon with the TM, but yeah, fairly soon.
There it is. Soon TM. That's why soon TM always means soon if everything else goes well, because it never does.
We're not looking in this in years and years from now. We're waiting for one feature to finish, and we're going to be looking.
See, okay, now that they can't say. I think they've gotten better about saying stuff like that. That was a definite bad idea to say that, because it has been years and years, and we still don't have refining. But again, this was at a time when they expected Pyro to be in game the next year. So making predictions based on this game long term is just a bad idea. All right, let's listen to Refueling a little bit, because Refueling, for those who don't know, is actually in the game. Refueling is like, it's funny, refueling is like docking, and docking is basically useless because most ships can't do it. Like refueling, it's like, okay, most ships we can do it, but there's no way really to do it, so there's no reason to do it, so it's kind of useless. And it's funny because refueling used docking to be made, and they both just kind of don't really get used much. But refueling is important for Pyro, which is why they rushed it in, and I'm hoping why they upgrade it next year. So let's listen to what they have to say about that. We're going to jump straight to the question about Pyro, actually.
Refueling is in active development right now. Is this because it's a prerequisite for Pyro?
It's not exactly a prerequisite. It's something that's going to help Pyro a lot. Finding fuel in Pyro is not going to be as easy as in Stanton. This is a torn down place. Everyone has left the building a long time ago. The people that are there and want to sell you fuel either are going to try to rip you off, or you're going to pay everything you have to refuel. So you're going to be relying on players. You're going to be relying on other people to come in with fuel from Stanton.
I don't think that's true anymore. This was not, by this time they had already figured out Pyro was going to be more frontier than just outlaw. But I don't think people should worry that we won't get NPC fuel services in Pyro. I think it's just going to be harder, like he's saying. But you know, if you look at the way that they're doing the gangs, even the Dusters gang right now is a neutral force, so they would probably refuel you in Stanton. There will be forces like that in Pyro too. It's not just going to be everywhere. It's just going to turn you away. That would suck.
And bring it in there and sell it to you at whatever price. So the problem also comes with Pyro is like it's very hard to find a station to refuel. They're far between. So you might be, oh, I'm in the middle of nowhere now. There's no way for me to get back to that station where I know there's fuel. Hey, can someone come help me? Someone come help me comes with a dose of risk, because someone come help me might come with guns. But yeah, this is where you have to trust other players, and this is where some of our reputation thing is going to come in handy, as in you look over.
There's the big one. There's so much stuff that's intertwined with this, like Scott was saying earlier, that's just interconnected with all this stuff in order for it to work right. Like even with refueling, as is being said in chat, it's in the game, but it doesn't work. The gameplay itself doesn't work. On top of that, you can't put out a beacon to ask for refuel, so you have to coordinate in global chat, which is insane. Like you can't. Can you imagine? It's like a trap. I mean, even people won't come to refuel you because it sounds like a trap. Hey, I ran out of fuel. Somebody come refuel me. But that's what we got in the game right now, and it's kind of like with Salvage. It's just not how it should be.
Over who you're dealing with, you go, well, this guy's been killing everyone that moves. I'm not refueling with you. I'm not telling you where I am. Pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that while Star Citizen is a massively multiplayer game, it is a multiplayer game. Some systems will be a little more friendly to the solo players than others. Pyro, from everything I've seen and read and heard and spoken about Pyro definitely seems like it's dangerous to go alone.
That's the point. It's that crazy zone.
Last question on refueling before we move on. Ground vehicles. Are refueling ground vehicles ever going to be a thing? I mean, do they even need gas right now? I don't think so.
It's also like, I don't think they have a fuel right now, do they? So, but the good thing is, so once they would have, we could have a solution to that.
It's not a problem. Once we do this, I think we will have to see how docking between two land-based vehicles will work, because that influences this. But once they start having proper fuel, I don't think it's a problem of bringing your tanker, whatever, truck next to.
You guys imagine like a Starfarer floating above like a tiny little PTV, refueling it. It gets filled up in 2 seconds. Honestly, refueling needs help, seriously. And I'm surprised we haven't really heard much about it with Pyro coming up, but we need to get better refueling, better refueling systems and services for this game to work before we go to Pyro. So back to refining stuff.
Which is for crafting and refining. Like this, the distribution of the resources helps us drastically to already plan out all the next steps that will, as Dan so nicely always mentions, it's like we really want to close out the loop, right? So you start at mining, you pick up the resources, may it be mining, may it be salvage, then you bring it to your refinery, you refine it to the processed goods, and once you have it in the processed goods, you bring it to your crafting facility, crafting ship, crafting whatever, and then you create
it's the full
requested
loop.
Items.
That's the full freaking industrial loop. That would be, I guess we'd still need exploration technically, but that's kind of attached on, right? You have mining, transport, refining, transport, crafting. That's it. We're pretty close to that.
Of them, and then you can even like circle back to like recycling the goods that you created and bring them back into the loop. So yeah, this is the ultimate goal. And with the current mining update, we are one step closer to achieving that. While I think we already mentioned it, that we are already working on the next steps in our team. So it's an active development.
So this talk is actually from fairly recently.
Yeah, but no, it will not only be so. But talking about mining in particular, no, that's not the end of it. And the reason is because there are still some ships missing that were announced,
right.
And they should have their own treatment of how you play mining with those.
Right. Things like the Orion and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's also a lot of the things that are going to change, exactly as we said. Eventually it all leads to crafting and making your own items out of nothing. You start out of nothing with a ship and you get this. But there's a few very interesting things along the way. One of the closest things right now are going to be those mining sacks. We need to be able to eject, collect, put into a refinery, process all that, or turn into refined materials, take that to a manufacturing ship, or sell it, or whatever you want to do. So the main thing is, like, we're seeing this as a mining operation. We're seeing this as a mining, refining, hauling, production, crafting,
right.
manufacturing operation that you can run. You can run it with 2-3 people, or you can run it on a full scale where you have whatever 20 prospectors, 5 refinery ships, 3 haulers, escort for all of them. It's all that thing. Once that ecosystem starts going, you're going to see some amazing operations in Star Citizen.
All these,
this is like this is a heavy multiplayer gameplay. Doesn't it kind of feel like when they talk about that, it's almost a different game? Because there's just no reason, there's no rhyme or reason really to fly a fleet right now. There is a little bit. Obviously, you can have some fun with it, but when they talk about this kind of stuff, it really does feel like they're setting up for a different game when it comes to focusing more on like org gameplay. Like right now, they're building the sort of Star Citizen basic experience, and then we're going to have a whole separate development focus on building out this sort of group gameplay style.
Pretty much all of these industrial professions are going to feed into some form of refining / crafting. That's kind of the pinnacle of everything, whether you do it from mining, whether you do it from salvaging, or any other system that's going to be coming down the line, whatever, picking lovely flowers because they have some oil that you can extract from them and use that to lubricate your machine guns or whatever. That's a different, so it all feeds into this thing where you can produce your own items and create hopefully a very flourishing economy where people trade whatever they produce today with whatever someone else produced.
Let's get back to refining. Let me see. I'm pretty sure we can look up the Star Citizen, May monthly report might have been. Ship refinery work began. So in March, the gameplay team was beginning ship refinery design. These intentions were brought up to speed to allow the engineers to start work in the next sprint. That's it. And, if you look at some of the other gameplay stuff that we get in terms of features, let's go to April. What they were reporting on Star Citizen development in April was anything refining based. For the refinery, the first blockout for the UI screen was created and the gameplay beats of the various refining methods were discussed. The team now have a clear understanding of what the different deliverables will look like and how the actual gameplay will play and feel. So, in a month, it took them a month to figure out the major hits of how refining gameplay would work. I'm assuming based off of other things that they've already done, right? We've watched these videos where they're talking about sort of almost theory crafting. So in a month, they went from sort of having an idea to getting it down on paper and knowing what it feels like. But then, for whatever reason, development just kind of paused on it, at least in terms of the monthly reports. And that's why I have no clue where this is, but it is some ways along. So when we do start hearing about it again, there is a good chance it'll come fairly quickly, 6 to 9 months, two or three quarters. I really hope that they do it next year though. But here's the last bit of info we have on it. This is the introduction of our dedicated refining ship, the Expanse.
Hey everybody. In our last episode of the quarter, we wanted to mix things up and take a sneak peek ahead at something coming your way while we're out on hiatus. It's the next concept ship from industrial powerhouse Misk and the first dedicated refinery craft of its kind. Let's take a look.
We've got quite a few ships already in the MISC manufacturer lineup.
You have the Prospector, you have the Starfarer,
Hull series.
but we wanted to have dedicated entry-level ship into the refining gameplay career for ship owners. The MISC Expanse fills a great hole in the gameplay loop of the entire mining refining cycle, because currently you go out to the far reaches of space, you mine some rocks, you fill up your capacity, then you yourself have to trek all the way back to the grain station or somewhere like that.
Yeah, it sucks.
To refine, and then you have to trek all the way back to go continue mining, whereas the Expanse...
We're now getting so desperate that we're going to start dragging asteroids back to stations because we still can't do it with these.
be the middleman, where you take on board mined goods, you processes it, and then you can either sell it yourself or you can transfer it back to a cargo ship and they complete the whole gameplay loop. The Expanse is the starter ship in the sort of refinery tier. We have refineries on other ships such as the Starfarer, but they're more specialised into purely doing fuel, where the Expanse has a bonus over them. Is it has what we call reactors on them, and at a very simplistic level, one reactor is one refinery process, and the Expanse has 6 of them on board, so it allows you to potentially do 6 entirely different refinery processes simultaneously, or for maximum output you can...
Now, when we... in fact, after this, we'll go and look at the Q&A for refining and for this ship specifically, because there are some really interesting things that complicate what he's saying here. But the refining process, having 6 refiners, it's more than just throw stuff into this ship and it gets refined over some time and then gets popped out. As Dan Truffin said earlier, there's no AFK mining. None. You're standing there, it's an active process. It's like mining or salvaging, and it's much faster than what we do in the stations. So they talk about reagents, being able to craft reagents and things that you have to throw into the furnace or urn or whatever to change the way that the refining process is going to get the most out of what you're doing. So there's crafting involved here. There's some thought involved here. There's your own know-how, knowing which materials react with what. It's going to be a pretty in-depth process. I'm actually surprised at how small this ship is because it looks much bigger to me, but it'll be cool to see what more they do with a larger style refinery like the Orion or the Galaxy even.
You can do 6 of all the same type and really sort of improve your bandwidth, so to speak, of refinery. We picked MISC because it sort of fits that industrial aesthetic.
You've got the rounded front nose of the ship, but then what you'll notice is you've got not massive, but you've got the big shoulders, and that's also on the Starfarer, and so we wanted to keep that. So it's sort of basically big airflow, big intakes, straight to an engine, and then back out. When people look at the back, there are certain visual elements there that you'll see that are common throughout the ship manufacturers. You know, it's sort of the ball engine almost, very sort of defined fins that surround that spherical engine. And also the other sort of main feature is the 8 pods. There are 4 on either side. It really gives this ship a unique look and silhouette. And there's no mistaking this ship. People might be familiar already with sort of MISC interiors are generally sort of a letterbox kind of viewpoint. You know, it's very widescreen. You've got that basically when you're sat in the pilot seat. You've got all your instrumentation laid out in front of you. It's all quite sleek, holographic. It's still sort of quite compact because it is a one-man ship. Leading from the cockpit, it will take you into just a small living section. So bed, locker, that kind of stuff. And then progressing to the rear of the ship is just a really small sort of like operations room, basically, where you can interface with the refinery section. And there's a little window there, and you can sort of see through into the gubbins, and you'll have a little bit of a display that you'll be able to do some of your interaction with. It's split level, so to get to get out of the ship, basically you'll enter into a really sort of compact and bijou lift, or an elevator, as some people say. That'll take you down to the lower floor. Jared, you might want to call it the ground floor. And then
the 0 floor.
And then outside, down a ramp, basically. So
you weird Brits. I don't know if this is actually no. This is like all of you guys over there in Europe. Me and Mrs. Tomato getting arguments about this all the time. You guys calling floors the 0 floor? It's like you can't call the ground floor because it's the basement. But then, like, what is it, the -1th floor? If it's not 0, or I don't understand, man. Y'all with your ground floor stuff, just silly.
Yeah, quite small. I mean, I think the ship is going to be kind of cool. I mean, obviously it's a niche role and it's not going to appeal to every player, but I think as a ship and as an owner, I think people are really going to like it. I think they're probably going to sort of, really start to gel with it. It's got a lot of personality, I would say. And I hope that, people, A, will enjoy what it does, but B, will also sort of enjoy the visuals of the ship and just flying around in it and just having that sort of one-man support experience.
The Misk Expanse is the first dedicated refinery ship for Star Citizen, an ideal place for beginners looking to start making their way in this career, intended partner of the Prospector mining vehicle, and you can learn more about it in the coming weeks on the robertsspaceindustries.com website.
Yeah.
But up next...
So that's what we're going to go do now, because they've got some interesting stuff to say. Let's talk a little bit about the Q&A. This is more context for this ship. This is actually what we're going to get, something similar to this in the... for the mining ship, the Erastra, later today. So if that comes out in time while we're still live, we'll go over that. If not, probably touch on it tomorrow. So some of the interesting questions they've got here, we won't go over everything, but one of the first things they say here is, what are the benefits of using a refinery ship? Dang it. I hate that Stream Elements does this. It always counts everything twice on YouTube. What are the benefits of using a refinery ship compared to a station-based refinery? The most obvious benefit is that you have the refinery on site. Yay! Meaning you won't have to take long trips to the station all the time. Another benefit is that on-ship refining process is planned to take less time than in-station, since you will be in control of the process. You'll also be unaffected by the refinery station's occupancy level when it's being used by other players. So you were asking about why not just fly back to a station. The ship also will take you less time and will get you more efficient yields. So they're all the time when they're trying to build these ships and these gameplay elements, oftentimes they're asking the same questions we are, and they try to build stuff in to make it more challenging or make you think about it. That's why I think that there's probably going to be more going into the Salvage gameplay. How long will refining take on the Expanse compared to the station refining? It's relatively fast and skill-based. If you know the material you want to refine and you know how to properly process it, you should be much faster than the big refineries. Also, you'll be refining much smaller quantities. Will it have safe storage for volatile ore, like Quantanium? No, the Expanse doesn't currently have safe material storage, so volatility will not be bypassed by storing it. However, it should halt when the refining process begins. There you go, Jim. Will there be a mini-game for refining like we have for other professions? They don't want to call it a minigame. No. Since the mechanics is a little too complex for that, we have a general idea of what we'd like the player refining process to be. It's not final and is subject to change, but currently, the idea for refining is, first, you'll put in the refinery sack. The sack. That's these little bags here that also are in the Prospector and the Mole. From the delivery or mining ship with the tractor beam and attach it to the intake socket of your Expanse. Then you'll analyze the materials, and based on your findings, you must decide which refining process you want to use. So I'm guessing we'll have guides to this that you can look up, but if you know your stuff, you'll probably be able to refine a lot faster. You'll pick either a predefined method with limited direct interaction or a manual approach, which has you directly interacting with the material through interactions like grinding, melting, dissolving, and more. Our goal here is to allow you to decide on how much effort you want to put into it. So you could take the easy way and pick a well-known method, or you could come up with your own refining recipe. That's a high bar, honestly, for just a refining gameplay loop. You know, I take it back. I didn't say this was niche, but I said it would be less popular than mining and salvage. I take that back. This looks like they're putting enough effort into this that it's going to be something a lot of people will be interested in doing. And with enough NPC-based missions, you're not going to have to do this by going out with some other players. You'll just get mined goods from other NPCs and get refining gameplay out of that. This sounds exciting. Basically cooking with rocks. We'll be able to begin refining and then store the expanse via ASOP terminal without interrupting the refining process. That'd be rich. They said no. What materials can the expanse refine? The current aim is to have every raw and unrefined material be refinable, so all minerals, gases, and metals, including scrap. We'd also like to refine gases into fuel. That's gonna be fun. I hope the gas giants are what's used for that. Is it compatible with the Argo Mole, Grey Cat Rock, and Drake Vulture? The expanse is planned to refine the vast majority of output from the vehicles above, so it shouldn't matter what the unrefined material comes from. Hold up. Still looking at FPS mining in the Grey Cat Rock. They're gonna have to change the way these sacks work. How are we supposed to load stuff from the Vulture into here? Can't put a box on that. Will refining require consumables? This is where that crafting comes in. It will likely require some use of power, catalysts, and other reagents. We plan to have your refinery be able to craft catalysts and reagents if you have the proper materials on hand. Will they require power from the ship to operate? This is what I was talking about with engineering. The refinery will be dependent on the ship's power plant. This might even impact your ship's energy balance if you want to run high energy processes in your reactor. So again, you might be doing refining and you might be fine doing it on your own, and you can do all of this solo, but it'll be a lot easier if somebody can be standing around actively monitoring your power. Why does the Expanse have a single small shield when most ships this size are better protected? It's due to the energy-intensive nature of the refinery process. The compromise was only having a single small shield to allow the ship to have full shielding while refinery processes are undertaken. Again, engineering used for balance. Could you explain in broad terms how the sack system works? Yeah, see, this only works with the Prospector and Mole, but they're talking about getting stuff from the Vulture. I don't know how they're going to do that. Raw, or does it use the same container? Oh, here we go. Okay. We plan to allow players to reuse the sacks that the raw materials were brought in and refuel them with refining materials. Prospector delivers you the sack of unrefined materials, which you successfully attach to your Expanse's intake socket. You can either move the contents directly to your reactor or store it in one of the sacks on the side of the Expanse to be refined later. Nice, so this is all storage too. That's good. Be careful though, the intake socket has a very weak connection and will not hold the sack in place during travel. Okay, so it's probably like a tractor beam. Yeah, it's all about these sacks. They don't talk about boxes. So this ship has 6 of these sacks, which allow for 64 SCU of minerals or whatever refined goods you have. And then it has 6 more compressed sacks above it. So technically you're getting 128 SCU of potential refining from one set of bags. But, you know, if you're out here in a ship like this, that doesn't matter. You're doing trips, you're doing rounds. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with this sack system, because I don't see how it's going to meld with the boxes. Is the system being planned to allow players to charge for ore pricing like when refueling from another player's starfare? Yes. We plan to have selling and purchasing systems where players are able to sell their unrefined materials to the Expanse, which will then be refined and sold on. That's an important piece of the industrial loop. Inventory exchange. This latest update, 3.22, actually gets us a lot closer to that. There's still not the escrow idea of payment transactions, but because now you can have like a 4 SCU box, you could just plop it on the ground and use it for transactions with people. Now let's talk about cargo. Cargo's exciting because it's like actively happening right now. What we're going to do to talk about cargo today is we're going to go over the cargo-related ISCs we got this year, which are talking about the current changes coming to the cargo system and inventory boxes. And then we're going to check out... Sorry, that's this one, and then, yeah, this one. And then we're going to check out the actual cargo profession and how it's going to change with new factions and everything starting next year. So, starting from the back, 3 years ago, 2020, this is them talking about cargo decks, which are kind of a laughing point. My main reason for showing you this is because we now don't really know what cargo decks are going to go, so let's get caught up on cargo decks and then jump more into the design behind what cargo hauling is going to be.
So with 311, we've taken our first step in what our cargo decks will eventually be. The exterior of the space stations, we've added cargo storage areas,
What will they eventually be, Todd?
Out, from a silhouette perspective, what the station is focusing on and doing.
I really love this song.
You should see that they hold up pretty well to those cargo modules, and I would say that the cargo modules themselves on the exterior are super fun to fly through, and that was on purpose.
I really wish that they had talked about these cargo decks in the video we're going to talk about from CitizenCon this year. The fact that they did not talk about cargo decks when discussing the cargo profession is actually really disheartening. What's going to happen with these locations? Are they going to have to redo these again? Not talking about these does present the possibility that these locations will be redone based on the actual way cargo is going to work. But maybe they'll just be able to add docking ports and hangars and figure something out. I don't know. I don't know where these are headed.
Cells on the exterior are super fun to fly through, and that was on purpose. So the player accesses the cargo deck from an elevator, and essentially they come out of an elevator into the cargo space. It's not a super huge space, the cargo deck, but it does give you that impression of a really large scale sort of warehouse and the work going on around you. So you'll come out of the elevator and you'll enter into a sort of large sort of thoroughfare that we have running through the center of the space, and then there'll also be this large warehouse area full of containers and the sort of hustle and bustle going on, and the tannoy announcements and things. So that's where the impression of the main sort of working space of the cargo deck is going to be. But the thing the player is really going to be interested in heading towards is the cargo shop, which will be sort of immediately visible as you come out of the elevator. And going into the cargo shop itself is another reasonably large shop containing racks of like supplies, and the sort of as if the supplies in the shop have been taken out of the larger containers from the warehouse outside, as if they're sort of breaking the contents of the containers down.
Look at those
ready
boots.
For sort of distribution.
Did you all see those? Look at these boots. Oh my God, those are tier 1 at least.
As if they're sort of breaking the contents of the containers down, ready for sort of distribution. But the shop also contains functionality for the player to sort of do their cargo related gameplay, which will involve like an admin desk for doing sort of cargo trading. But there's also a small supplies shop in the cargo shop that sort of gives the player access to sort of buy more sort of utilitarian or workman like supplies as well.
I think the team did a great job in getting the look and feel right on the cargo decks, from the exterior and as well as interior. That's really our first step into it, and then as we go on, this allows us to build on the foundation for future patches, whether that be regarding missions and their tie-in to the corporations and you building reputation with them, or for basically side ventures if you're a mercenary or you're a pirate and you want to go and attack these haulers.
You want to kill some boxes.
And then this also allows us to start really working on our guild system and basically which will relate to as perks or specific missions or gifts associated with that career that you've chosen.
So they've talked about that for sure over the years. We've talked about reputation and how that would happen. And the talk we're going to talk about in a little bit, or the talk we're going to look at from CitizenCon talks, so many talking words, discusses the idea of rewards and specific guilds and how they'll help you through your career.
So I hope everybody sees this as such an important milestone as I do in our journey on building out these decks and really fleshing out the universe.
So
these new cargo decks
really didn't do anything since here. Like, for those who have joined, for the record, this is September 24th, 2020. This is 3 years ago. Have you seen any difference between what we saw here today and this? I agree with him. I think they did a great job of building something that feels like a cargo deck, but it hasn't gone anywhere. And a lot of that's because the cargo refactor took so long and cargo hauling took so long, which is what we're going to go over soon in a little bit. It's just such a bummer because we also don't have an idea of how this fits into what we've been seeing now. They just haven't touched on the cargo decks basically since this 3 years ago. I'm about to show you what the cargo hauling game loop looks like as they presented it to us earlier this year, and you're gonna ask the question, where does the cargo deck fit in here? Because this is gonna be 30 minutes we're about to go over of cargo hauling gameplay and how it's supposed to work. And I don't think they talk about the cargo decks, but we will see. Now let's jump deeper into the cargo and see what their plans are long term for this. This is stuff, again, that's happening right now, like in 3.22.
So at this point, a lot of what we're working on is still in the design phase.
I would say in the technical design and planning phase, but yeah.
There's a lot of TDD, like technical design document going on, preparing the feature and all the parts. There's a lot of work in that area.
The North American Persistent Universe team are currently at the forefront of the next major evolution of cargo, hangar, and related inventory systems. And as their work begins to enter the PU over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months and beyond, all building to what we hope will collectively become a true cargo career, we here at ISC, well, we didn't want to wait to begin telling the story. As much like the engineering and resource management systems of the EU-PU team, this work promises to be utterly transformative to the overall Star Citizen experience. So these next 2 shows, well, they're going to be a bit different than normal. That's because we're not going to have anything to dazzle your eyeballs with just yet. Yes, the ISC gameplay capture team, as great as they are, well, we're going to let them take a break this week as we let members of the NAPU team take you through the design and intention of their current work in a 2-part special we're calling Design Brief Cargo Career.
I like to call it Talking Boxes. This is a lot of box talk.
The focus of NAPU in the foreseeable future is going to include features such as freight elevators and instance hangars, as well as persistent hangars. Freight elevators are one of the biggest changes to cargo that we've seen in the entire history of the game. They bring the feature from being something that's somewhat magical to something that's physical. It adds friction, but also a gameplay experience around hauling cargo in our game. This one addition, I think, is going to change not just cargo, but also the way that we interact with everything else in the game: inventory, player items, purchases, ship items. It's a fundamental change to how players are going to deal with the world. Freight elevators are going to be implemented as an access point inside of player hangars,
where the player can interface with cargo to get it ready to put it on their ship.
And you'll use a kiosk to interact with the freight platform in order to call things up from your inventory or to put things into your inventory. The way that the freight elevators are going to be implemented is actually using the same technology as we use for the cargo grids in the ships. Players will be using their tractor beams in order to detach things from the platform and then haul it onto their ship, and vice versa. They'll be using the tractor beams in order to detach things from the cargo grids and put them onto the freight platform. I think that this is going to make the whole experience feel a lot more tactile and organic, as well as there's a lot of fun and interesting gameplay around just how you stack things, how you sequence them, take a group of people, decide how you're actually...
It is actually really fun. I don't remember what video it was, but he shows some of the QA he was doing to try and figure out, he wrote like basically a new algorithm. Worked on a lot to get the stacking and organization of different sized boxes to work correctly for this game, with experience from outside of the game to make it work well. So it is a cool piece of gameplay. And ever since the beginning, this is a very old picture. but it shows their hopes to get, sort of like a graphics holographic manifest so that you could easily see what it was that was in a ship or in a hangar or that you were moving between two different places. And if I can find the correct video here, so this, you can see here, they've got some interesting ideas clearly linked to hangars that I think they're going to try and use this kind of stuff to control our inventories in hangars. It's big, it's easy to see, it's expansive, it gives you a better sense of scale. At least I hope. I hope we get a nice big interface for it. All right, let's see what it is.
All right, so I gotta go do this thing, but Chad is right here, so I'm gonna let Chad explain this new improvement that's coming to the cargo system in Alpha 321. Take it away, Chad.
Yeah, so I was doing some work for the tractor beam attachment with new larger boxes in the game. They are often these longer on one sized boxes. And because of how they can fit together in the ship, across each other in all these kind of complicated ways, sometimes placing them in the ships is a bit tricky, and it can be a little finicky to get it just right, especially in tight corridors with larger boxes. And so I was adding some new functionality into the system so that whenever you're placing them around, if the direct placement underneath the attachment doesn't work, there's some fallback logic that'll look nearby where the placement is to try to find a good placement for the box, so that it makes it essentially more forgiving whenever you're using the tractor beam. In the ships with these larger boxes, you can place it such that maybe it's just a little bit off the thing that would work. And instead of just not giving you anything as far as like placing it, it'll give you another fallback option. And all that really means is that it is a little bit easier and quicker and more intuitive just to drag things around in the ships and get things together.
Just a little bit. This is going to be a life changer, dude.
Yeah, this is what killed me on, just this whole packing system and this tractor beam stuff. This is like, I nearly died on the Hull C getting it in, because it is incredibly sophisticated code for this stuff. It's like I literally read a PhD thesis on packing algorithms implemented, which is really fun. It's just the time scale that suddenly I had to operate under because of circumstances out of my control. Made it very intense. But
circumstances out of his control are us raging backers wanting our cargo refactor.
It is very cool, like the stuff that I was doing it. So I'm excited about it.
And we're hopeful.
Yeah, this is great. So it doesn't. I think when you're just watching it like this in a video, it's just like, okay, this is probably how everything works, right? Every game just kind of predicts how you're going to stack. But I can imagine the code not only for getting boxes to self-adjust, because I've tried writing code for a game. I don't know about you guys. I've done some intro to CS and I'm not great at it. But figuring that out for the cargo in this game, which is just so weird. And I'm guessing writing it in a way that works for all of the future cargo they're going to do, which is like different shapes and stuff. This system's great. I don't know if it's in game yet, but what we currently do have is not bad for placing boxes. It's a lot easier than I would think with how janky a game like this is. But let's get back to what he was actually saying about cargo, since I got a little distracted there.
Actually going to load things together. It's like that time that you go and move with a U-Haul and your friends, you got to figure out where to put the couch, but in game. It's going to be figuring out where do we take that big box, where do we put the ship items, where do we put the guns, and try to sequence it in a way that's both optimal as well as, I think, fun.
We don't just want to have the feature, exist in a void. Really what we want to try and do is work with the whole scope of the game to support cargo. So this is something for outposts, for UGF, where we want to look at how do we really take advantage of cargo in these spaces.
However, it does mean that the outposts will also support the same manual loading process that the hangars and those other locations use.
So not only are you participating in cargo, in a hangar, in a station, but out in the verse as well, at an outpost.
And while freight elevators will be available throughout locations in the persistent universe, much of the work involved in manually loading and unloading your vehicles will always involve your hangars, which presented the team with some unique challenges to address and overcome, starting with the next iteration of instanced hangars.
Instanced hangars solve a particular problem. How do we have people spending an extended period of time in their hangar loading cargo now that we've added these freight platforms, but also allow the
I'm going to be so happy that we don't get just freaking shoot out of the hangar because we'd taken too long. Oh, your ship's going to get stored. Screw off, ATC. I'm putting oatmeal in my cargo bag. Give me some time.
Locations to have traffic coming in and out of the landing zones. What we're doing here is decoupling the access to a hangar from the occupancy. And all that really means is that we can dynamically create these hangars at runtime, and they're kind of set aside for players to spend time inside of.
Without getting too much into it, right, you're going to have a personal space. We're just looking at ways that a lot more players can do this simultaneously.
We don't want to have a big choke point of everybody trying to load their ships and unload and all trying to do that in the same space. So we have instance hangars as a way to put you in an area where you can feel comfortable, you can take the time that you want to load or unload your cargo and, really engage in that system the way that you choose.
And so you can actually have your personal space to deal with cargo inside a hangar. And depending on your ship, there'll be different situations and different locations for that.
But the thing with this one is that when you leave, things gonna basically go away.
Once you want to leave, you'll just make a request to ATC and the hangar will move into place. We'll open up the doors and you'll be able to leave. And then the same thing when landing, you make a request to ATC. The system will allocate the space for you, open the hangar, and you can land. For the players, it will seem seamless, but underneath the hood, the system itself is going to be maintaining a representation of where all the players are, what requirements are needed.
I don't understand why they're saying this like it's new. I was under the impression they were always going to half instance our hangars because, these space stations are only so big, right? We couldn't even have 200 people have their hangars at a space station and make it make sense. I don't know exactly what they had said before, but I remembered them talking about Lorville before we got any other planets besides Hurston. I remember them talking about apartment buildings and how they might do moving in the background so that habs could still be where they are. They just don't always have to be there. So I always thought that's how they were going to do hangars too, but they're talking about this like it's like a new idea to hint instance. I don't know. Maybe they changed things up.
A representation of where all the players are, what requirements are needed, without having a bottleneck for players who are actually just trying to play the game otherwise. And then we have persistent hangars. Persistent hangars are kind of an evolution of instant hangars. And really what it is it's our first step towards real player ownership in the game beyond ships.
The cool thing is that you'll be able to put your stuff in it, come back to it, and it's still gonna be there.
It's just whatever the player wants to keep inside their hangar, that's their home. They can just leave them lie around, they can arrange them however they want, be it weapons or cargo or dead corpses or whatever.
Very, very long term. I have no clue of any dates or anything, but you'll be able to customize it and upgrade it so it becomes bigger. You can have bigger ships in them. And maybe at some point even having them at distant location, you could buy a second one. For now, it's going to really be on your own location.
It's persistent to you and your character. And you can invite friends to your hangar. You can load up your ship. You can take the haul from your mission, out of your ship and distribute it to your buddies. So persistence of hangars is really...
I'm so excited for the idea of just hanging out in a hangar. Yeah, you play the game for a while, but every once in a while you just kind of screw around with your friends, and it would be cool to have a hangar where you can just spawn things as soon as you need to. Can we just spawn PTVs and do races around one of our ships in the hangar, just screwing around? And they get rid of Armistice, and we can start shooting each other with EMPs and stuff. This could be a lot of fun to have a persistent safe space like this.
Your ship and distribute it to your buddies. So persistence of hangars is really important.
This is going to be developed more in the future, and we're going to use the same technology that we're using to build this for other things in the game, such as player habs. And it's a real, I think, exciting way for the players to feel like they have a more permanent place in the game that they can call their own.
I can't help but
seriously
notice
nerf tag and stuff. Oh man, this could be awesome.
320, we introduced a new packing system that allows us to use a larger set of box sizes. Right now, that includes 1 SEU, 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, and 32. However, with this new version of Cargo coming out subsequently, we're going to be adding the ability to have what we call inventory container boxes.
Inventory actually plays a big part of Cargo as well. When you look at the sheer scope of number of boxes and number of weapons and armor and
so this
FPS.
This is what's being added in 322. I just released some content on this on the second channel if you want to see this in action, but these sort of shared inventory boxes that can be accessed now moving past 1/8 SCU are like one of the best changes to the game in my opinion we've gotten in years, at least as far as the overall basic game experience. Like everybody has to loot, and this completely changes that.
Entities that we have in our game, we really want to make sure that not only is Cargo physicalized, but that inventory has a proper location and place as well.
If you go to Port Tressler and you hit I, you'll bring up the player inventory screen, and you'll see that, okay, I have my access to Port Tressler inventory no matter where I am standing in the station. That's going to go away. This is very important because what it means is it gives the players a way to transfer in a very clean and effective way all of the loose items that you collect during gameplay.
A big change that's coming up is going to be having properties for those boxes. So that could be something like a box that's fragile.
That was me.
Or a box that could be radioactive. Or that needs to be kept cold.
This change reminds me of
or that needs to be kept cold. The other thing we're looking at with Cargo and Cargo boxes is the ability to store large items in your Cargo boxes. This could be anything from a ship weapon to even smaller vehicles like Grey Cats. That way when you're going with your friends, you're going to do a long haul across the verse, you can have these larger boxes filled to the brim with as many ship weapons as your ship is going to carry.
Anything that you think you want to take with you and hold on to, now you can put them in an inventory container box, snap them into the cargo grid, and haul it into your ship. Additionally, you'll be able to take those to the freight platforms in order to put them into your inventories. So it gives a kind of universal way to haul things around in the game, as well as a way for players to be able to pirate player inventories now. Now that you have these goods that are locked up together in these inventory containers, it just takes a tractor beam in order to carry them off. So it gives a lot of gameplay possibilities for us to have with these loose items.
A lot of these things will tie into missions and where you decide to place them on your ship. So we're really trying to make sure with Cargo, it's not just a wide system, but that we're actually adding these kind of elements to help further gameplay, missions, and purpose.
You guys had the week off. This is a design brief show. It's talking and it's intent, and none of this stuff is ready to show yet. Don't you want a week off? Your stuff's so weird anyway.
So weird.
No weird stuff for Cargo Grid. Back to the spaceship.
We have
the weird
some
stuff's
additional
necessary.
changes that we're going to be making to the cargo grids that allow them to have any sized item attached into them. At the moment, we have effectively one kinds of items that attach to the cargo grids. Those are the cargo boxes, and they all have a similar size step on the dimension. And what I just mean by that is they're all what we call 1S.
So this is how the sacks would be carried with boxes, but how do the boxes go into the expanse? Just don't know.
Length multiples on each side. We're going to have it to where anything can attach to the cargo grid as long as it's a physical item in the game. Anything that you can grab with that tractor beam that can reasonably snap into place will be able to snap into place. And this is a requirement just to satisfy the inventory changes that we're making now that you won't have this kind of magical access. But it also, I think, broadens the horizons about what your cargo grid in all of your ships can be used for. I think it'll also open up a lot of fun gameplay around just figuring out.
See, like, this is what I mean. You could actually do this in the game now. This would be a hefty load of work and probably not worth it, but it is possible.
How to arrange all these things in a way that works well.
So yeah, that's part one of our...
Yeah, so that's part one. Let's jump into part two. I don't think we have to go over too much of this, but this does talk about some very interesting parts of cargo hauling that we probably want to know about. So we'll fly through this one as well. I'll try not to pause it too much because that last one took us a while, but there's a lot going into cargo hauling. And again, this is all active and happening now. So there's a lot more detail here than there were with the other professions. That's why we have a little bit more to go over.
Why should we care about cargo? Or why should you care about cargo? And to me, the answer is because I never thought of Star Citizen as just FPS. In fact, I would say the thing that makes me the most excited about Star Citizen is that it's a whole world of people who have their own ambitions and goals, and they're interested in different things. And to me, cargo represents a way to get into the world, to play with your friends in order to engage with other players, even in this dynamic way. You have all of this player interaction that comes around hauling the cargo, dealing with pirates, hiring people to defend yourself from pirates. And it generates this whole kind of economy and simulation of player interactivity. And I think this kind of thing is at the root of what makes Star Citizen special. Today in the game, we've had all of this, what I call instantaneous cargo.
When you're in the real physical world, things don't just appear and disappear in your car, right? A person going to Costco, they don't just click on a few things in the kiosk and it magically appear at the back trunk of their car.
That kind of magic way.
Is that not standard?
Of opening inventory is gonna disappear and it's gonna become that warehouse inventory.
With these new changes with the freight platform and the cargo grid and inventory container boxes and needing to move things manually with the tractor beam, it is going to add a certain amount of friction into that whole experience.
The benefit of manual loading is really that you get to choose how you organize your cargo and how you get to load it on your ship. You know, you've got one guy that's loading the bigger boxes with the vehicles. You have your other friend that's loading in, you know, your ship weapons. Another maybe is loading up commodities for a long haul. And you can organize that, snap everything to the cargo grid, tractor beam it onto your ship, and head out with your friends for an adventure across the verse.
The cargo career is at the heart of what Star Citizen aims to achieve. Not just a universe of exploration and conflict, but one of commerce and opportunity as well. And last week we shared the first part of its next iteration with a discussion of freight elevators, instanced and persistent hangars, varied cargo boxes, and a new cargo grid that'll expand the possibilities of your ships in new and exciting ways. So here in part two, we're gonna dive a little deeper into the systems underpinning it all, starting with how we intend inventory to evolve next.
And speaking of inventory changes, this leads us to what I think is one of the other very big transformations that's happening with these new sets of features.
So instead of having something like a magical bag of holding, you actually have a place where you can go to put your items, to store them, and you know that it's safe while you go out and do future travels. One thing that we want to do is really kind of physicalize.
Great. All right, more of that deep stuff. That real deep that gets the logistics people going. The stuff he just mentioned, storing things in your cargo, your hangar bay, is sort of derivative to another reason they might keep cargo decks. And another reason we'll have time sinks or money sinks. So let's say you are a cargo hauler, right? And you've got Ooh, you got the sweet hookups in Terra. Yeah, Terra has the best space pigs ever. Like, the space bacon that you get from Terra and those space pigs when they're eating their space acorns is good stuff. Or is it truffles? I don't know. Whatever it is, they got fucking good pigs, okay? So Terra's got this great supply of pigs, but nobody really wants bacon. They had the swine flu going around the UEE space over the last 200 years, and bacon kind of fell out of popularity. Oh no. Unfortunately, you loaded up your Hull C with 800 SCU of bacon. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna handle this? Luckily for you, you also know a pharmaceutical person who has been making drugs that makes people want bacon. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's the future. So what you can do is store all that bacon in a cargo deck maybe, or a hangar for a month. Know it's safe, know it's all good, and then you bring it out later on and you're making good pig money. You're getting back in that pig industry. Things are good, things are golden. And that's only possible because hangar base. I don't know why I came up with the whole story. It's just very cool that you'll be able to store cargo for a long time, and that'll allow you to game the system and game the economy. But at the same time, you have to pay some money for it. So it's kind of like a money sink. It's part of logistics, and it'll definitely be part of like org gameplay. But at the same time, not many people will probably be doing it, just the cargo haulers.
Inventory in terms of you need to be at a specific location to use that inventory and management. So this gives us a lot of benefit across the game where you know exactly where your stuff is and where to get it and where to go to organize it.
Now you'll be accessing that inventory via the freight platform and the hangars. You'll be using the freight platform to put it down. If you want to take something out, you use the freight platform to take it out. And you can use these inventory container boxes that I mentioned previously in order to optimize that kind of hauling. Let's say you realize you have a lot of guns.
So notice they're talking about how the cargo experience is working, and they're still not really mentioning the cargo decks
that you want to take with you. Well, in the kiosk inventory management screen, you can move those items into a single box to aggregate them together so that you just use one pass with the tractor beam in order to move it all onto your ship. It also means that you'll have the ability to haul larger things in the game more efficiently by taking them and putting them into these larger boxes, such as ship items that maybe you purchased or stole.
If you want to do some kind of underground assaulting mission, you just bring your big guns and everything, and you also load that into your ship. So everything is going to be really physicalized and no more kind of magic stuff popping here and there.
In addition to the freight platform access, we want to give players the ability to access smaller items without having to go to a hangar. And for this, we're going to add some kind of what I call an item bank. And this is just like a secure box kind of access point in the landing zone so that you don't have to go to a hangar, and it'll look very similar to the other personal inventory interactions, and you can move.
I love that. That's just great. Being able, because like they said in the beginning of this video, we're not going to be able to access our whole inventory from the whole city. If you missed that, that's going to be, they originally disconnected space stations from the planets. Now they're going to connect cities from spaceports and stuff. But still being able to spawn that stuff in your hangar physically is going to be really nice.
Smaller items around there, such as handguns or metapins. But again, tying it to a physical location in the game and getting rid of this kind of magic. We're taking that and also applying it to the inventory in the vehicles. Right now in the game, you can hit I while you're inside of a vehicle, and you'll see a similar kind of invisible magical inventory for the vehicle. We're going to be getting rid of that and instead replacing it with a combination of access points like glove compartments in the ship, as well as those inventory container boxes, so that you'll still be able to haul personal items and larger vehicle parts between locations in the game, but you'll have to do it in a way that's physically tied to actual entities that are attached.
Okay. What he's saying here, let's listen to it again, but I want to ask a question before we listen again. Do you think that what he's saying by inventory gone, replaced by physical compartments, do you think that we will be actively opening compartments and selecting those things with our interaction system? Or do you think they'll be trying to use that menu that they brought up for looting during CitizenCon? I'm thinking that I'm thinking a mixture of both. I want to see what you guys have to say. But here, listen again to how he's saying this is going to work, because this is pretty key.
Invisible magical inventory for the vehicle. We're going to be getting rid of that and instead replacing it with a combination of access points like glove compartments in the ship, as well as those inventory container boxes, so that you'll still be able to haul personal items.
Because imagine, I mean, yeah, I think he's basically saying that this is a storage port, right?
Combination of access.
So if you've got a storage port here and a storage port down there, they're both going to be connected. So physically, it wouldn't really make sense to have to reach in there and get the stuff. It also
points like glove compartments in the ship. It'd
also be weird to have to open this and get a gun out of it because of the physics and everything of it. So yeah, I'm thinking menu, but interested in what you guys believe.
As well as those inventory container boxes, so that you'll still be able to haul personal items and larger vehicle parts between locations in the game. But you'll have to do it in a way that's physically tied to actual entities that are attached to the cargo grid, as well as exposing it in a way for people to be able to reclaim them from a wreckage or maybe even pirate.
So, lots of changes coming with everything being physicalized, everything stored in box into play.
Inside of player hangars. And you'll use a kiosk to interact with the freight platform in order to call things up from your inventory or to put things into your inventory.
The player controls the freight elevator through the freight elevator kiosk because we have to coordinate between 3 different doors. The kiosk is what determines when the door should open, when the door should close, when the cargo get loaded and all that stuff. So that is the physical thing that's basically going to bring up cargo for you and then also like take cargo from you when you sell it.
The kiosk is going to be the center point of the hangar. This is really where you'll manage everything. So it's not just the cargo stuff that you manage through the kiosk. You will be able to manage your inventory, basically bringing up the stuff, sending it back. It's also going to be those small items. You also going to have some sort of inventory box that you will be able to interact with, to put stuff in it. Basically, everything is going to go through that kiosk. So everything is central to the kiosk.
It's easy to see how all of this will redefine the open sandbox experience at the core of Star Citizen's persistent universe. But what if a cargo career isn't for you? What if you just like to run the occasional mission? Don't want to spend your time loading boxes or prefer speculating on the market economy around it all? Well, the purview of Nepu is to construe for you, too.
Okay.
We are going to have missions in the game that latch on to this. So for example, you'll be able to take a mission where a corporation like Crusader will ask you to haul their cargo for them. And this is an opportunity for players to engage with this kind of gameplay of hauling and manual loading without having such a large investment in the game. Right now, cargo has largely been required to have a large investment, speculation, and risk on the part of the players. And where we're going is we're going to be reducing that risk for certain sets of players who don't want to engage with that kind of speculation, while still allowing them to have this kind of fun, manual loading, kind of packing experience. On the other hand,
that's basically cargo hauling gameplay. The missions will be hauling based, the profession will be trading based.
Thing that you are more interested in is that kind of speculation and that kind of trading and wheeling and dealing and trying to just cut the best profit. We are still going to have a certain amount of automated loading in the game. It just won't be instantaneous. You'll have to use a service. It'll cost a little bit more. It'll take time. You won't have access to your ship while it's being loaded. But you know, depending on the kinds of gameplay that you're looking for, if you enjoy that more physical kind of gameplay, we'll have that there for you. If you're more interested in just kind of profit trading, we'll also have a path for you there too. So I think in this kind of new world of cargo and all these new features that we're coming out with, we're trying to make sure that for all the people that are looking to play with this, that there's something there for them. And of course, all of this comes with a large amount of economy tuning that's going to need to rebalance things now that we have physicalized movement, guaranteed friction on the transactions. So all of these things we can use to rebalance it and hopefully make it to where if you're interested in taking high risks, there's a path for you to maybe get a better profit. Vice versa, if you don't want to, there's still a way for you to be able to play the game and not be overly punished. That's going to be an ongoing endeavor, and we'll talk more about that as we get closer to release.
And they try to do that in a lot of stuff. That's why when we talk about these different types of gameplay, engineering, cargo hauling, all this sort of stuff, it's good to acknowledge that they know that people don't want to get super deep into it. That's not why they're making it deep. They're making it deep for like the really hardcore players. They also want to allow casual people to get into it, but just like solo and group players will have different experiences, the casual and hardcore experience is going to be a bit different too.
That is a summary of that we're working towards for physicalized cargo. Now, this is going to be an ongoing process, starting with the first set of changes coming out with 320, automated loading in with the whole C, and the new packing system that's coming out there. But we'll continue this work of adding these things like freight elevators, hanger instancing, persistent hangers, inventory containers, all of that, and continuing into subsequent releases. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about it, and I think I'll be
all the stuff you said.
Hangers, inventory work of adding these things like freight elevators.
So we got freight elevators,
hanger instancing,
persistent hangers,
inventory containers, all of
containers, which we're getting in 322.
All of that.
So the freight elevators and persistent hangers are really one of the last major steps of at least this part of the cargo refactor. I can't think of more parts of the cargo refactor we need to go through.
Continuing into subsequent releases. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about it, and I think I'll be back a few more times to get into more details about those things.
I look forward to seeing what they're developing in the future, and then also showing it off to the community and team.
That was more the functionality of cargo hauling. Now we're going to look at, this is a sort of a talk on the actual idea of cargo hauling, where it's going from the lore perspective, from reputation, and more about like, yeah, you're going to be carrying boxes, but why? And what makes that interesting? So we'll talk a little bit about this, get through this, and then I think I have time to touch on some engineering after this, and then we'll be good to go. Cheers.
As I'll be talking to you about different aspects of cargo and freight on behalf of Art and Design. My name is Nick Etheridge, and I'm an Assistant Environment Art Director. So obviously cargo isn't just about boxes. It's a big part of the game. Almost every aspect of the game has some kind of involvement with cargo. And I'm going to briefly go through some of them now. So let's start with missions. How will hauling contracts work in-game? We'll be introducing the Interstellar Transport Guild, as well as formalizing some of the main hauling and cargo.
So this is basically doing what they've already done for mercenary gameplay. Everywhere you go in the system, there is a faction that will give you mercenary system or missions that will give you different types of missions too, with little tidbits here and there. They'll have reputation that you can get. So that's what they're doing to cargo. This is pulling cargo into the actual game now.
The companies that you'll be working with. As you do more hauling contracts, you will build up your reputation and relationship with the guild. This will lead you to gaining more lucrative contracts for specialized cargo and destinations, such as different forms.
We actually already have these factions. We can do missions for Ling, Kovalix, and Redwind. I think they're really just making this official and truly plugging it into the reputation system, which is a big deal.
Of hazardous cargo, perishable cargo, riskier routes, and more. So what do I mean by hazardous and perishable? Well, as you know, there's lots of commodities in the game, and different commodities have different properties. As you know, with events like Xenothreat, we have some special cargo types with different attributes, such as time-sensitive cargo or quantum-sensitive cargo. But those were a small selection for the event, and they were the two-handed carryable types anyway. We'll be expanding those types, plus lots more types, to the wider game and to these hauling contracts. So how does this affect gameplay? It will affect the choices you make when you are handling, storing, and traveling with the cargo. For example, with size and weight. Is it carryable? Do you need a tractor beam? What type of tractor beam do you need? Is it a handheld one or a ship tractor beam? Some containers can only be moved with ship tractor beams, for example. With health?
I don't think we've had that confirmed for sure. I guess they have said that multi-tools will be limited, but as at least right now, they still can lift 32 SCU boxes, if I'm not mistaken. But still nothing about mass. That really bugs me. Why don't they talk about that?
Has the container got good integrity? Is it holding fragile goods? Do you need to handle it with care? You can't just throw all containers about. For temperature control, do you need to ensure the container is powered so it can keep the contents cool? Or do you need to get to your destination quickly, otherwise the contents may perish? For security, can the container be locked or hacked? Can the contents be scanned, or is the container tracked? Will there be pirates or law after you when you're holding this container? Hazard containment, is it radioactive? You might need the right protection against it, as you may have seen in Jens's presentation earlier.
This, I like the concepts of this stuff because it reminds me of... What is it called? Solo. Very simple name. Han Solo, the movie. It's like this is actually comes from a complaint somebody had. They were like, you really built this whole movie around the idea of this dude transporting cargo from one place to another. And that single question, I feel like, was like the rally cry for all of the cargo haulers and in a game like this, in Euro Truck Simulator, in anything. It's like, yes, because a good game figures out how to give you, am I too close to the mic? Appreciate you telling me, thank you. We should be able to take a to B mission and then make it super complicated and do a bunch of stuff with it to make it more exciting than just transporting cargo. Like, stuff that's flammable suddenly is more dangerous because you're going to a hot planet maybe, and like you have to keep your ship more cool. I don't know, stuff that can't be rocked around too much. You can't go into the VTOL or you can't go into atmosphere because it's too windy and stuff.
Can it explode? You might not want to put these containers on a more exposed section of your ship. And many of these attributes are going to be visually distinctive. So conversely, if you want to steal, for example, some cargo on a hull C, which does have very exposed cargo containers, you might want to avoid shooting blindly and accidentally blowing up your potential profits. So look out for those types of containers. Back to mission progression. We'll be introducing perks and rewards as part of fulfilling contracts and raising reputation with these companies. For rewards, we'll have branded ship and tool skins, branded clothing. There will be collectibles to decorate your hab, hangar, or ship, or you can put them anywhere you want. And there'll be more exclusive rewards that we'll be revealing later. Thank you. For perks, you'll get access to more items in shops and discounts on specific items. And all of these rewards and perks you need to earn in the game. You cannot just buy them.
Come on now. Breathe it in. Reputation earnable rewards that you can't buy. Good stuff. Can't wait to have some things I can actually earn in the game and care about.
Next, let's have a look at freight elevators and hangars. I knew you'd be excited for this.
He said, "Oh yeah!"
Hangars. I knew you'd be excited for this. I'd like to show you a short video to demonstrate how freight elevators will change how you view your hangars and how you use your hangars.
Woo! Dude, this is so cool to see. This doesn't even look like Star Citizen to me. It's so dang functional. Persistent hangers in multiple locations? Yeah, I believe so. Just gotta pay for them. So, I don't know if this handoff functionality was working with our boxes before, where you could tractor beam the same box at the same time to hand it off. But if it didn't, they got it in really quick, because I'm pretty sure it was happening in 321. Yeah, these dev branches. This is cool. This is also pretty unexpected. I mean, that's basically, this will load an entire, I don't know, a Seulin, right? One single cart like this will load a bunch of ships easily. This is, if they have these at persistent hangars, or maybe another money sink, when you get to the persistent hangar, you have to rent these kinds of things from the hangar itself, right? Because you're not carrying this around on your ship unless you have a big ship. So you got an Avenger Titan. You land, you have to go in and rent one of these, and then you can use it to fill your whole ship at once. This is really helping out those sort of small-scale hauling missions and stuff, or people who want to start out in hauling and don't have a big ship yet. This is all... I love this.
No.
I love this music. It's so perfect. So I think somebody asked if we really think they would be delivering like items like this out on the freight elevator. I think so. I think we'll get stuff depending on how it's stored. This obviously might be something that they're doing, but I think this kind of stuff will be the case. I really do hope we get little gun boxes like this. Very cool. But I mean, it even says, you know, you're using your personal items. In development visuals, though. Ah, vehicles from the hangar. God, it's beautiful. How are they spinning things in the tractor beam? Hold the R key.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as you can see, hangars, they will become persistent and personal, meaning you can stay there as long as you want. Whatever you leave there will persist and will be yours to use as you see fit. Your hangar won't just be a place that you leave from in your ship. It will become a key base of operations to handle your inventory and storage needs, and you'll be able to request your ships from an ASOP terminal from within the hangar itself. Location inventories won't be magic and instant anymore. This means that the freight elevators will be one of the main ways you interact with your local inventory. Items stored at the location can be requested via the elevator kiosks and will be brought up in a physicalized state to do with as you want. This would be done through a dedicated interface screen to manage large volumes of items. It won't be using the personal inventory system. The change is obviously a really big quality of life improvement to retrieving ground vehicles. No longer do you have to travel thousands or millions of kilometers to specific places in the verse to get your vehicle. You will get them straight from your hangar.
He says quality of life, but this is like quality of existence. Oh man. I don't even really use ground vehicles that much because you have to go to an outpost to get them. I think now I'll generally always have one with me.
You'll also be able to bring up ship components. So your hangar is now more of a maintenance bay and outfitters where you can do repairs and swap around items and things like that. So in short, persistent player hangars in combination with freight elevators will dramatically change what you can do in your hangar. It will be a home to do as you want, which has always been the dream. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, it's a big dream. We've been waiting for that for a while. As of right now, though, we don't really have too much recent stuff on mining. Engineering we do, though. So how about we check engineering out briefly? I actually haven't done my review of engineering gameplay from CitizenCon. I got to do that sometime soon. There was some other engineering discussion earlier on in the year. And if you are a fan of engineering, I would go and check this discussion out because it has a lot more useful information than what we're about to watch. But it's very long. It is here. An hour with Torsten to talk about engineering gameplay and how it works. They've also got this Inside Star Citizen design brief on it, which sort of talks about the different parts of engineering. Now, just so you're aware, there are 3 main sections to engineering: management, tuning, and mechanic. We're really seeing mainly the mechanic and the manager here, though they do talk a little bit about tuning. But here's an introduction and some more discussion on how engineering will work. This is one of the biggest parts of industrial gameplay and something everybody's going to have to pay attention to an extent, but not everybody will have to focus on too much. So don't panic when you hear these details.
Hi everyone, I'm Guillermo Bilbao, gameplay programmer for this team, and I'm going to talk about the resource network. So what is the resource network? The main drive for the resource network was replacing the previous pipe system you might have heard about with a new system that was more generalized, easier to expand, and that would support all the gameplay we actually want to do. And yeah, so it is a network, as you can see on that picture, showing the connections between different items, even those inside object containers. And it enables specifically the relay gameplay we're going to show right after. So it will have a global impact. You're going to see it in ships. You're going to see it in outposts. It's built to work with the cargo system in some ways. And as for interacting with it, the engineering gameplay we're showed today is going to be the biggest example, but you will also see it in other places, especially in missions. Let's have Thorsten talk about it a bit more.
So as a crew member of a ship or as a person managing an outpost, you have several responsibilities, where the engineering topic can be split in 3 activities, and you can decide to share those responsibilities or take them all by yourself. It's really up to you. Every task requires their own skills and their own tool sets.
Okay.
Tuning. Here you are responsible for preparing your ship. Your journey did not start yet, so you adjust your ship items based on your goals for the travels. Exchange sub-items, adjust the default settings of your power plant, basically operations that require you to turn off the items or even remove them from their sockets. The next activity is maintaining, and this is all about damage control and keeping the items in pristine or pristine enough state. You are the mechanic that makes sure that everything is and stays operable. Maybe even go further in the sense of caring for the items. And what caring means is here reducing the wear and tear rate by regularly removing dust or oiling the items, just as some quick examples. So let's actually show you some of the maintenance you can already do and will be able to do. So here we start with 2 gameplay mechanics that are already in the game. So technically nothing new, but the entire engineering loop ties them nicely together. Here you saw me collecting IMC, or still collecting, and now I will take the shield generator of the recently destroyed Gladius to use them as a spare part for myself.
So this is like Salvage. This is one of the versions of Salvage we already have, but you also are getting this beautiful HUD that I really would like. Please give us the new HUD soon, please.
So all of this is of course optional. So you can purchase those items already and in the future even assemble them for yourself. So crafting. While the Fury approaches, you might get the glimpse of a debug UI. So there's the Fury now coming. I activated the debug UI to show you the health state of each item. And what you should have seen is that the shield generator is fully destroyed and the power plant that I'm about to take out now is in low health. Low health means you can still repair it. So which you will be happening now with Guillermo and Pete repairing the power plant after I removed it from the Fury. So it's making it fully functional again. And here you see the debug UI, the health is now fully up again.
Here he should have just been saying this whole time that this is placeholder, that this isn't what repair is going to look like. But they still forget to do that.
So it's making it fully functional again. And here you see the debug UI, the health is now fully up again, and that means that it runs at full efficiency again. And here you also see that the shield generator is at 0 health.
So I think we really need an animation for things like components snapping in and boxes snapping to the grid and stuff. We need some kind of like zooming sort of animation that makes them not just jump into position, but like look like they're snapping into place.
So the destroyed shield generator cannot be repaired because it's destroyed. So I have to exchange it with the spare one that I collected from the Gladius. So with all those repairs being done, the Fury is operatable again and it can go its way. So getting back to the responsibilities. A big one is managing your ship, which includes resources, but also more general aspects.
So he went over tuning, which is overclocking, underclocking, changing your components to run in a certain way before the ship even takes off, right? This is like the person who shows up to the ship early and does all the startup process. He showed us the mechanic, who is the person who's doing the repairing and making sure that things that are broken are getting fixed. Now he's going to talk to us about the manager, the person who overlooks everything. But notice how he didn't give us an example video of the tuner. So I think that's still something they're working on design-wise.
You have to manage the power distribution and come up with informed decisions, like reacting to hazards like malfunctions, fire, low energy, but also calling out items that need repair and maintenance. You will delegate the rest of your crew to keep your ships intact, like giving clear priorities of what needs to be done first. Let's take a look at another video here. So this is the first glimpse of the engineering UI in action. It is still being worked on, so it's heavy work in progress. Let's start with looking at the item view. So you can see the full setup of the network with the relays, the green dots connecting to each other, and the relays connecting to the items. Color and shape below the icons should help you identify the different item types, like power plants, weapons, also helping differentiate between consumer, producer, and converters. You can tell the current state of the item, that means the amount of energy it produces, consumes, or has stored, the health state it is in, the current wear and tear on the item, and the current state it runs in, like charging or being in an idle state. You can directly interact with these items, turn them on and off, and in the future even switch their states. If you hover over...
As an engineer, expect me to turn your turrets on and off while we're hanging out in patrol. It might be annoying, but don't worry. It's fun.
A relay that I will be hopefully doing soon. You will also see that the amount of fuses that are still active and yeah. Because a relay consists of several fuses, basically they're their own set of lives. And here...
Whoa, okay, wait, hold up, I missed that. I missed that detail before. So I thought relays and fuses were different things, but he's saying that relays are a set of fuses. So you don't actually lose a fuse and then lose that functionality. You can blow fuses multiple times before you lose the relay. I didn't get to see this demo in person when it happened live, so I still haven't gotten to sit down and fully focus on it. But that's a pretty key detail too. And that sounds like some extra redundancy so that, you know, people don't feel so pressured by fuses going out to get up and change things. Some wiggle room.
The details, like you can click on the items to see a 3D render of the power plant here, the quantum drive, sorry. And here's the relay overlay. Here Pete shoots a relay to show the UI updates on the screen. So once this relay got shot at, you will see the update here on the UI that suddenly the entire right-hand side of your ship lost power connection. And what you might have not picked up on the screen is that actually the power plant here that I'm now focusing on is on low health. So I'm commanding Simon to repair the power plant to get it fully operational again. So, something to highlight here, take a closer look at the doors. Since we also track the door states, you see that you can watch movement inside your ships now nicely. So you can track players moving around in your ship and even close doors for them, or like compartments in this case where Simon just forgot to close the compartment.
Yeah, it's cool that you just get that remote control over your ship. Somebody, I think it was Azon, might have mentioned that we need to be able to open and close our ship from the outside. This feels like the bones of that. And it's nice to finally see all this stuff coming together to allow our ships to feel like actual ships and not just buildings that are unpowered.
Yeah, so Pete destroyed the relay, but we need the ship in fully functional state. So yeah, I'm running now with a fuse and place it in the relay, so make the relay work again. What you can also do with the doors is that you can create safe pathways, because you sitting at this engineering screen have more information in regards to your ship than the others. So you open doors to create a path that the players on your ship have to take. Now to the room view. That is mainly the life support controls plus controlling all doors. Again, we show the details of each room, like the temperature, pressure, atmosphere composition. So everything that is relevant for like you living on a ship. The door states where you can now have precise control over each door in your ship, as you see here. This will also allow you to have more control over which door or compartments to open. So here, again, showing opening the power plant. That also helps very much in already telling players, hey, you should repair this item, so I open that door for you, and they directly know which item you mean. It also allows us to control like the outside-facing doors much better. So you can directly open, if you just want to open the left side ramp, or the front-facing ramp, or the back-facing ramp.
They love that slow ramp.
So we did it last year already, but let's make our crew suffocate again. So the moment that you basically pull off their helmets, and now me pressing the cycle button, you see that the entire atmosphere in this room is vented. And yeah, well, the consequence is death.
Oops.
So, as you can tell, engineering gameplay will bring a lot of changes. Some of those changes are adding batteries to ships that will allow you to get a little bit of extra power for a short amount of time. Allowing you to control items directly, where it's not only their on-off state, but also their resource consumption. And where the biggest change that will come in this update is basically to the resource consumption and generation. So let's talk about energy balance. Currently, ships are balanced such that they consume less energy than they produce. What I mean with that is that the sum of all items requires less energy than the power plant will provide. And this has to change. The energy rebalance that I will explain to you now will affect mainly bigger ships. Single-seaters will still behave like they do now. For big ships, we will focus on item groups. Those require energy, but your ships will not provide enough energy to have all components run at 100% all the time. Instead, you have to decide what you want to have permanently powered by your power plant. So managing decisions will have an impact now. You could decide, as in this example, to shut down your thrusters to turn on the weapons. Isn't the best choice, since you will not be able to maneuver, so might not help when you are attacked. You would be able to shoot though. And here comes in the batteries. In scenarios where you need to react, you can activate the batteries and use the additional power. Batteries won't last forever, but you at least can power additional systems.
I wonder how deep they're going to
recharge the batteries again, but
with this battery system. This sounds like a ton of potential for crafting and manufacturing. Like with engineering, one of the big things about engineering gameplay is it almost feels like this is going to create a market for people who want to just craft and sell components. If there wasn't so much danger in components not working or being so much different, that market might not be there. So like even almost an add-on effect of building so much complexity into this system could be creating that market. I'd love to see what happens when we get the ability to start making storefronts, because these batteries, man, I don't know where they're going with this, but they just introduced it and it sounds like there's a lot of potential.
You need to free up energy from the power plant to direct into the batteries.
So I will talk about more functions real quick and get you guys to the next video since we're a bit behind schedule. What are more functions? You've seen misfires in the persistent universe for seals, for thrusters. You've seen a very basic version of it. We're making them more complex. We're making them more lethal in some ways and more fun to interact with. Also, some of the new functions will include fire, spreading misfires that represent electrical surges going through the ship, or signature burst, which increases your signature and makes you show up on enemy sensors more easily. As for how you will counter them, you've seen suffocating people with life support. You will also be able to suffocate the fire with life support, which is probably more useful. You will be repairing them, not necessarily only with a repair beam, but also replacing parts or some bespoke behavior per misfire. And if all else fails, just turn it off and on. You've seen in other videos the fire. This is a small fire. You can just put it out with a fire extinguisher. Pretty simple.
Didn't get to see that one.
Here's a bit of a bigger fire. It might be that you cannot only put it out on your own. So here we have one crew member that's going to try to put it out with a fire extinguisher. To mixed results. And here we have the option of using the life support system Thorsten showed up before, and yes, venting the area.
I love that. That actually adds some decent functionality to the Crusader ships, because they've got all these doors and all this segmented walkways that you can now vent to get rid of fires or cool an area down and not have to worry about the pilot or anybody in these sections that might get affected by that. No automated fire systems, but we do have HVAC systems in all the ships.
And now you can see that the fire, once we get to that compartment, has been successfully put out.
Oof. Oof. To say that fire and fire extinguisher is basically the same as hull scraping. Oh, if I was the dev. They've been working on fire for a long time as a sort of separate thing.
What you just saw gives a good idea of...
And this is the fun bit when they start to talk about how further engineering goes.
Idea of how busy ships will be and what meaningful multi-crew gameplay will look like. But what about the future? Since we worked on technology that will be used throughout the entire game, you will see more and more coming utilizing this tech. It will introduce systemic gameplay with allowing players to come up with creative ways of manipulating their environments, sabotaging a power plant or destroying a vital relay that connects it all to shut down an entire enemy base that can include its life support or security systems. It would also tie in nicely with Maelstrom that you just saw.
For the record, they're showing this because this system won't be just ships. It'll be in cities and outposts and space stations as well.
And anything that will break off will lose its connection to the network and therefore have an impact on its functionality. So it's a real systemic feature. The technology allows us also to take further steps into the crafting profession as well as in the base building, where both are related to each other. Bases built by player will also form resource networks and come with their unique challenges similar to ships. We are all really excited about the future of this tech and all the associated features. So there's a huge thanks for all people involved. Thanks to the entire EUPU team.
You are all very kind. We appreciate your hard work, and we're looking forward to engineering. Don't expect it until later next year, though. To finish off today, we're going to touch on mining because we did get that Q&A to pop up. And after this, really, I'm pretty sure I missed something industrial related, but this has been mostly a review of what's going on with industrial gameplay in Star Citizen and where it's headed. So let's start with this, and that'll wrap us up with mining. How is its refining capabilities compared to things like the Expanse, Orion, and Galaxy, which we read about today? The Arastra has 2 reactors that allow it to run separate orders concurrently, so that's compared to 6, I believe, on the Expanse. They're much larger than the 6 found on the Expanse, allowing each order to contain a much higher quantity of goods. Okay, a little trade-off. While the numbers for player-controlled refining are still being worked out and we don't want to give specifics, expect each reactor to be able to refine around the same amount an Expanse can in one go. What? Oh my god, this ship is so big. Actually, no, it's the Expanse that's small. That's what keeps getting me. The Expanse is smaller than it looks. So, does that mean that this thing has the capacity of 2 Expanses? Compared to the Galaxy's refining module, these reactors are about the same capacity. Okay. Compared to the Orions, they are significantly smaller. So, we go Expanse refinery, Galaxy and Arastra refinery, Orion refinery in terms of size. Is the Arastra able to refine Quantanium? If so, is it able to create its own fuel? It can refine Quantanium, look at that, as a resource, but has no way to feed it back into its fuel tank, so Quantanium is purely generated as a commodity to sell. Okay. How do the Arastra's mining capabilities compare to things like the Prospector, Mole, and Orion? It sits between the Mole and Orion with larger lasers capable of cracking harder rocks at greater distances than the Mole. Doesn't necessarily mean there will be new types of deposits, though. They are very much sticking away from saying there's any difference to mining other than what we already do. Are the mining lasers on the Arastra bespoke? What are the benefits of a size 3 mining laser? They are not bespoke and will have an upgrade path like other mining lasers in the game. Sizing wise, they simply provide greater range and energy output. So these are even bigger. So we'll definitely have to get bigger asteroids before this game comes in, this ship. But we don't know if they'll work any differently. By that I mean permanent deposits and stuff. We talked about this ship a ton on Launch Sequence Podcast 2 episodes ago. Exclamation point podcast will make that pop up. But I had Croncy and Red Monster on to talk about it. And they're mining-focused creators. We had a long talk about how this ship could change the experience. But so far, CIG isn't giving us any hints at that. Does this ship have VTOL mode for planetary mining? Yes, indeed, it does. to allow it to hover on planets. Does this ship have a dedicated vehicle bay, or is the internal 64 SU cargo bay used for this purpose? What's the largest vehicle? Vehicle bay is in the center of the cargo bay. However, the two coexist with cargo grids being available at the edges of the room. The central space is designed to hold 2 Rock DSs or 2 Rock Ursa-sized vehicles, so G12 as well. Does the external ore storage use standard SCU containers, unrefined ore bags, or something new? They use standardized SCU containers to allow for a huge amount of interoperability with other vehicles in the universe, for example, when offloading and transporting cargo. What about all these other ones with bags, though? This is the third mining vehicle we're getting in-game, third mining ship we're getting in-game, and they're making a huge design change by not having it have these bags. And that's big because how do we attach these things to the Expanse if we want to? Or how do we trade bags out with the mole or the prospector? This isn't going to be interoperable with the other mining ships like they are with each other. Does that mean that the other ships might switch over to bags or boxes too, or is this always going to be different? Will it be possible to take material from ore bags onto this ship to refine it? Yes, the Arastra has 2 ports on it capable of taking ore bags from the prospector or mole, but you can't use them for mining. Just a refinery? Like, you can't just carry them around and store them? Because I'm thinking, like, what if you have a bunch of ships and you just want to trade out the bags? I guess you don't need bags for this since they're stored in boxes that'll get made on the spot. Can't control the laser via the pilot. Yeah, I just missed these 2 questions somehow. My bad. Does the external ore storage use standard SU boxes? We did that. Missiles. Which seats can control missiles? The pilot seat. Surprise. Are there any other entry points to the Arastra aside from the rear ramp? There is a large docking collar on the side of the ship, as well as a central crew elevator that goes to the ground. Nice. Got all the entrances. Which seats can control the missiles? We did that. Rear ramp. What amenities are aboard? Crew quarters, storage, weapon racks, all that stuff. The Arastra has a shared bunk area for the crew and a separate shared habitation area for them to relax and prepare food. Yummy. There are no dedicated medical rooms aboard. There are integrated weapon and suit storage facilities, but no dedicated armory. Imagine if this thing had a medical room too. With these later ships that we've been getting, it also kind of feels like their idea of ships has begun to shift too. Like the Siulen is a very interesting place to put a ship for, and then call it a starter. And I think the Cutter also being a bare bones starter from their point of perspective shows that idea too. This, the Galaxy, a lot of the concepts they've introduced over the last 2 to 3 years feel like they're almost higher quality in their design and what the company has in mind for them, I guess. So I'm not sure what that means for how these things all develop, but I do feel like the game is scaling a bit to handle that, and that could mean that we suffer from power creep and older ships suddenly start being a little bit less enticing. But with the gold standard updates, they do have the chance to make sure that that doesn't happen. However long that takes and how much money, I don't know. But it just, I don't know, there's something different a little bit about the way that they're introducing ships now. But that's about it, guys. That wraps up all of the industrial gameplay I wanted to go over today. This has been a long one. Oh my god, this video is going to be so long. Cheers to anybody who stuck around for the whole thing. Thank you for everybody who came to the live stream. Cheers, guys.